All right, so this is going to be my weekly outlook. So the reason that I'll just explain the reason that I'm sort of doing this live sort of start off with. So basically, when I was going through looking at all sort of breaking down all the different things that I do for my trading, I sort of narrowed down sort of what I think I'm good at, what I think I'm okay at, and what I think I'm sort of not the best at the same time. And one of the things that I was weakest at, in my opinion, was weekly outlooks. So Chris suggested sort of doing Zooms and stuff like that, so then I can sort of discuss my ideas and stuff like that, and potentially sort of start to go into more depth. So this is what I'm sort of looking at going into this week. So starting on the quarterly chart, not a lot has changed since my last outlook. We're about 370 pips up from the flip. No highs or lows have been broken. We still have like sort of a month to the close. So going down to the monthly chart, the main levels that sort of important to me on the monthly are the previous zone that we were sat in before. So obviously between there and that, you can see this red pen when I'm drawing, can't you? Because if not, I'll use the zoom annotations. Okay, cool. So yeah, so this is the main zone that I'm sort of watching on the monthly. So we're just fairly fresh in the new monthly candle. We're only like 3 days in. So it is worth keeping an eye on. While this isn't sort of backed by analysis currently, it's sort of speculation. This could easily end up being a sort of lower wick for monthly if we did end up making a move to the upside. So from a monthly perspective to the downside, the main levels that we can be watching without sort of going into sort of structure on things like the weekly dailies and 4 hours and all that sort of stuff is the lower the previous monthly, because for upside it would be nice to see that level respected. But going down to the weeklies, these are the sort of scenarios that I'm looking at. So because of our position in the market, we're right around the bottom end of our weekly resistance zone. I've got my weekly resistance zone marked from this resistance here with the resistance creation candle. So it's this whole zone here is a big zone on the weekly, in my opinion. So the main ideas that I'd be looking for is, I think this is a bit more clear on the daily, but I'll explain it on the weekly anyway. So this is our support here. I see this as sort of an extension of our resistance zone potentially. So we could bounce from either this point here, which is our main sort of resistance zone, or we could easily form support here again, because prices already proved that we can come down, break below, and then make our way back above this zone here. So if we did, this could end up pushing up here, and then I'll be looking at this sort of like a triangle of love. And then obviously this could potentially turn into another range before we break up, or we could just end up continuing up. If we do end up getting above our sort of weekly resistance here, the main level that I'll be watching based on the weekly time frame would be those two wicks there, because we've obviously wicked up to the same level twice and failed to break. So there's clearly something going on in that level. To the downside, pretty much the same, just the opposite. So if we were to pull below here, form resistance below our weekly resistance, we would still be above here, but then that would give us the potential to start pushing down. Like we've got marked up here, obviously watching for reaction at sort of our weekly support there, that level there, and as well, the sort of standard would be we broke below our resistance, then just broke and retested this on even structure on something like the 4 hour would be something that I'd be looking at to then potentially either start ranging again within these levels here or start making moves to the downside. So I'll just go down to the daily time frame. So basically, all my ideas have come from the weekly there. Then in the sort of lower time frame we go, then I can sort of get into more depth with it. So on the daily, the main levels that I'll be watching for these ideas would be this daily resistance here, because on the 4 hour we've got reactions here and here. I'll be able to explain in a minute, and then as well as this here, which is clearly just an important level to be keeping an eye on, where our previous weekly highs were. But yeah, same ideas here. Main reactions are sort of all the levels I've marked up aren't just like individual support and resistance levels. These are the sort of main ones that I'll be keeping an eye on. From a daily perspective, these are the ones that are the most important to the upside to me. And then to the downside, when we go onto the 4 hour chart, it becomes a bit clearer, sort of levels that I'll be looking at. So obviously the idea is the same as the weekly and daily, but the main levels that I'll be watching on the 4 hour for potential for either we could see price pivoting from these levels, sort of range hesitation, or we could just end up moving straight through, and depending on volume, obviously times of day and stuff like that, when moves are happening. So looking to the upside from our current position in the market, the levels that I'm going to be watching are firstly this 4 hour support and resistance level here. I've got that marked out from the low of this 4 hour candle that was on the 10th of November, as we can see that prices obviously form support here. Then we're seeing clear reaction to it here. all the way across here up until there. And the way that I've been marking out my support and resistance levels recently is rather than just looking at the individual support and resistance levels, I've been looking at sort of looking further left and looking at where they've been created from, because while it can look less accurate at where we're reacting to, in the long term, I found it to be a lot more accurate. So you can see like levels here, like this 4 hour resistance that I've got marked up just above my next reaction level. It doesn't look like it's bang on this support or this resistance level because it's not. But when you look at where I think caused it, which was this level here, if we had to see future reactions, we could see price wicking up and just tapping this level here or forming resistance at this level here where it would have made it just past there. But yeah, I hope that makes sense. So then more to the upside on the 4 hour. Obviously, this is our daily resistance. We got the weekly highs here where we can see previous support here, turn resistance. Then we tapped into that again just there. Then 4 hour right at the top. I don't really expect us to be getting this high during the week, but it's worth keeping an eye on anyway. This was just caused by, I think I've got this marked on like the 30-minute or hourly from this level here, where we just tapped into it there, form resistance there. And then obviously from a session perspective, stuff like tapping into this 4 hour resistance here is what I'd be watching. So I'd have all these levels marked up going into my session, like obviously all the ones I've got marked up here. And then just session to session, I'd mark up individual support and resistance that are just sort of mid zone, if that makes sense. So if I was trading in the session was here, price was at this level here, I'd mark up this and keep an eye on it going into the session. But the main levels I'd be watching would be the sort of levels I've got marked up. So now looking to the downside, and for the same sort of scenarios, the levels that I'd be watching would be the key daily support and resistance. This is a level that Chris has been talking about for a very long time. And looking left on the dailies, I think in April. That's the low of this candle here. I've got marked out from the 15th of April 2022. And then we've seen reaction. It's not as sort of clear reaction as you would see with some of the other levels, but it's definitely still relevant from what I've been seeing recently. So we've been tapping into it all the way across here. You can see here tapping into it perfectly. We've seen reactions here, and then previous week we were watching it there. So price was to pull down to this key daily level here. I wouldn't be surprised for us to see sort of either pivots for upside or sort of range in between here before breaking up or breaking down. Breaks to the downside, the 4 hour levels that I got marked up here. This one was from the daily, I think. That came from this candle here, this support. We're watching so we can see clear reaction all the way sort of across where we've been tapping into it. So that's the next level that I'll be watching. Going to the 4 hour. This sort of support and resistance level here. And then from that, it would be the monthly support. And then we're right at the bottom end of the daily zone here, getting close to the Q2 base for 2022. So yeah, it's a fairly simple outlook. I would like to eventually sort of get more in depth with these, but at my current ability level, this is sort of the extent of my outlooks currently. So if anyone has any sort of questions on that or wants to discuss any points, feel free to sort of unmute. Ask. So that's it. Any questions? All right, cool. I'll stop the recording. Sweet. Wait, it's still recording?